Okay, here we are moving on to exercise 720, and the first thing you're going to notice is that you have to open up a new file. You're going to need the file called depreciation. You know what depreciation means? It's taking of an asset, something with value, and over time or over the life expectancy of the product, it loses value. A lot of people will think of automobiles right out of the gate because of their rapid depreciation. Okay? So take, for example, you go to the car dealership today and you buy a 2020 Honda Pilot. You knew we would use that as an example. I'm going to guess $45,000 brand new, give or take. It doesn't really matter if my number is right or not, but it's $45,000 for this example. So I drive that car off the lot, I take it home, and 2 weeks later I take a nice little trip down to North Carolina where I'm going to play some golf. Drive it back home, and on the way home, semi kicks up a stone and puts a dent in the front hood. My kids have now left golf balls, tees, and empty bottles of containers in my car. Coffee's been spilled. There's dirt on the floor mats. Is the car worth the same as it was when I pulled it off the lot 2 weeks ago? No, not even close, right? Now I've not only put miles and wear and tear on my vehicle, I also have some other issues with my car. 5 years down the road, 6, 7, 8, you get to 10 years down the road, what's the value of your car? Is it still $45,000? No, right? That is called depreciation. In Excel, we use the DB, all right? DB as in boy, the DB function. The DB stands for declining balance. And we're going to depreciate an item based on a fixed rate, that it assumes that it declines a certain value every single year. Okay? So, select the cells B11 and B12. We can use the fill handle, and we're going to extend this down to the 10th year. So, what we have here are milk tanks. All right, so I'll tell you a little story. My father grew up on a dairy farm, and when I was a child, I would go to the farm and I would help. And as the cows were milked, they would have to store the milk somewhere, and they stored them in these giant milk tanks. And then a truck would come by once every 2 or 3 days, and they would attach their hose, like a big giant gasoline hose, they would attach it to the milk truck, from the milk truck to the milk tank. Well, those milk trucks that drive around, they're valued at $250,000. Okay? So over 10 years, what's the value of that truck going to be? Now, who needs to know this? Well, the company needs to know this. They need to know what the value of their equipment is. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on. We are now going to click the Formulas tab, and we're going to go to cell D11. And we're going to start by clicking the Financial button, and we're going to locate DB, Declining Balance, also known as depreciation. All right, and it says even here in the screen tip, returns the depreciation of an asset for a certain period of time using a fixed declining balance method. Same consistency every time. So let's talk about some of these items we need to use to fill this box. First things first, the cost. What is the initial cost of the asset? All right, the asset in this case is a milk truck. And I bet you can figure that out, okay? Because it says right there that the original cost was $250,000. So it comes from cell D7. The next is the salvage. What is salvage? Salvage is going to be the value of the item after it's completely been depreciated. It is the item's worth at the end of its life cycle. So I'm going to click right here in salvage, and so they're saying after 10 years, a $250,000 milk truck is going to be worth $10,000. And that's probably right. Now, why is it not worth zero? Well, there's still some value in, even if it doesn't run, in the scrap metal, and maybe even parting it out to other trucks that can use some of the parts that are still valuable. So not always will the salvage value at the end of the life cycle equal zero. In this case, it's going to be 10 or $10,000. Next, we're going to go to the life. Okay, and the life is the number of periods over which the item will depreciate. All right, these periods are typically expressed in years. Okay, so in this situation right here, the life is going to be 10, and that's coming from cell D9. Next, we'll click in the period. The period is the time for which the depreciation is calculated. It's the same units as life. It has a 10-year life. 10-year life. You would usually figure depreciation to be like one single year. In this case, it's going to be cell C11. So we put this number here, all right, as the period that it's depreciating. Now in the month box, this allows us much the same as what we've had before when we want it to be, well, here in this case, is the number of months is in the first year. So if we don't start in January, we could start at a different period of time. So this allows you to start depreciating an asset in June if you buy it in June, or in August, or even December if you do. The label month is not bold. You see that? It's not bold, and that's because it is not a requirement. So in this situation, we're going to leave this empty. So let's see how much we've got here. We're going to go ahead and click OK. And that number right there is how much we've lost in the value of the vehicle in 1 year. You've probably heard that all the time. As soon as you drive a car off the lot, it depreciates the most it ever will. And here's an example of that. A $250,000 truck, after just 1 year of use, has lost $68,750 worth of its value. Now let's go back into that cell. Well, let's go into cell D12. Let's learn how to write one. Okay, I think it's just as important to know how to use the formulas button and the financial button, the dialog boxes, as it is to write it. I think when you start to write it, as long as you know the beginning of it, you'll be pretty well versed in it. Type in equals DB. So there we go, returns the depreciation of an asset. So open up the left parenthesis, and our first thing is it asks for our cost. And our cost is $250,000. We separate our arguments with a comma. The second argument is the salvage, okay, and the salvage is cell D8. We're going to put a comma. The next one is the life, and we know that that's D9. And then we hit a comma, and then cell C12. So 2 years now. Oh, this is interesting. So what we have here in the first three, D7, D8, and D9, we have relative. These never change. But now we're going down the row of, or down the column of C, and these change. So this is going to have to turn to absolute eventually. We'll get to that in a minute. So now we're going to choose C12, which we have. We don't need to do anything for the month, so we can simply close the parenthesis and hit enter. So in year 2, we've lost $49,000. So in 2 years, added together, and I'm getting this number down here on my status bar, we have lost $118,593.75 of value. In 2 years, we've lost almost half the value of the truck. And that is about how things will work. Okay? So this is the completion of exercise 720. In the last exercise, we're going to use the copy and paste of DB function by making it absolute and relative. It should come back to you. All right, let's go ahead and close that exercise, or keep that open, but we're going to move on to exercise 721.